So when I brought this concept of overwhelm to my mentors, they helped me see it differently. Caren, the overwhelming feeling that you have is your abilities that are waiting to be brought forth to the
Wow.
world.
Whoa.
And yeah,
I
that
didn't see
was
that
mind
coming.
blowing. And I was like, wow, what a reframe. So
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Grow Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Kevin McNulty, and this is your personal development school of growth, where each week my guests and I will bring and break down big ideas and practices that will help you learn, grow, and succeed in life. Thanks for checking us out. Now let the growth begin. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Grow Yourself, where we try to help people learn, grow, and change, to just improve a little bit every day to become better humans and better professionals. And so today we're going to talk about a very interesting subject that will help us in many aspects of our life. But let me start by saying that, I believe that life has a way of testing us. Sometimes it comes, through loss, sometimes through change, and sometimes just through the quiet realization that what we thought would bring happiness isn't enough. And my guest today, Caren Paskel, knows that journey firsthand. In fact, she's faced extraordinary challenges, including the loss of her husband. And yet, she found a way to not only heal, but to create a life of resilience, purpose, and joy. That's that's what I want to explore with her today. How can we move from overwhelm to overjoy? And how self-belief and timeless wisdom can carry us through the hardest seasons of life. And so Caren Paskel is a best-selling author, speaker, and founder of wellness organizations dedicated to self-evolution and holistic living. Rooted in yoga and Vedanta philosophy since her teens, she's guided thousands through her programs. Her books include The Power of Self-Belief and From Midlife Crisis to Midlife Creation. Her work blends ancient wisdom with modern life, helping people cultivate resilience, clarity, and joy. And so, if you would please welcome to Grow Yourself, Caren Paskel. Caren, thank you so much for being with us on Grow Yourself.
thanks, Kevin. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I haven't read through your book, but I've read about your story, and it's pretty compelling. It's not so much that it's an unusual story from the standpoint that many of us have lost loved ones, but I think it's where you went with it that really makes the big difference. But listen, before we get into that, can you just share with our audience who is Caren Pascal?
Well, I'm definitely a butterfly.
Kind of noticed
All,
that.
always in transformation and growth and creativity since I was a little girl.
Mm,
I I was always very introverted in my family of five, the youngest. My brother and sister are 8 and 10 years older, so I
oh,
kind of
interesting.
came a lot later, and everybody celebrated me. It was the right time. I was the baby in the
Mm,
family, and it was very positive.
mm.
So I had a positive upbringing. Of course, there was some chaos in the family and a lot going on and some dysfunction, but a lot of love in my home. And the one thing that really helped me become so expressive, even though I was so introverted, is the welcoming to share and express our feelings growing up in
Okay.
multiple ways. We were encouraged to go to therapy if, there were any issues to talk about what was going on. And also we were, encouraged to share in the family to my parents, and even my brother brought me to AA meetings at when I was a very young person, probably 8 to 10 years old. So I was
Wow.
sitting in big circles sharing stories. And then at home, I was always creating some kind of artwork on my own. And
Mm.
this led into taking art classes. I was also a mover, loved dance, loved sports, very athletic. So around high school was when things started to catch up to me a little bit. And my mom recommended yoga because I started to have anxiety and I had a panic attack. And that was my first experience with a spiritual practice. I had gone to Sunday school. I came from a Jewish family, so that didn't really resonate to me. I wasn't looking forward, I will say, to Sunday school. And it felt like sort of information was pushed in and I didn't really understand. It didn't make sense to me. So yoga practice did make sense to me and I
Mm,
connected to myself in a greater way.
mm,
And from there, I kept up a spiritual practice throughout my life and it really helped to shape me and mold me and help me through challenges. So it was a beautiful journey from when I was younger that led into me teaching yoga and then eventually opening my own studios and so forth. So I think that's a
yeah.
little bit of a
Yeah, that's
background for you.
fascinating. Fascinating, fascinating. I would like to ask, though, when you talk about spirituality, I happen to be Christian and I'm a practicing Christian and spent 3 years in living in Israel. So I'm very familiar with the Jewish race or the Jewish religion, if you will. But you move into a different maybe this is unfair to say. I'm not trying to coin it into something, but a different form of spirituality. Let's just put it that way, and you can certainly correct me. And so how is that different though than more of the sort of the religious spirituality? Or is it different in
Well,
your mind?
so this is interesting. This is a beautiful question and topic, and I love to share on it because
Please.
I get a lot of questions. And I was in a podcast recently where they asked the question, what is spirituality? And my understanding of it and the way that I define spirituality is the moment somebody decides and chooses to inquire into life, into their
Interesting.
purpose, and into why they're here and the meaning. So those bigger questions instead of following the herd. And I believe that the crux of every religion is good and pretty much the same. It's religion is actually the word broken down means to reunite or go back again to the divine, right? To
Mm,
whatever you would want to call, let's say, the term God or the unknown. But it's all to get back to that source, right? So there might be rituals, but there's always concepts and teachings. And if you look closely at those concepts and teachings throughout each religion, they're very similar. And they're meant for different personalities, which is beautiful. However, what we're taught is we're born into this religion and we're not really taught to reflect on it most of the time and investigate on our own to see, if this really resonates with us and our life. And so I felt that there was nothing wrong with the religion.
yeah.
I just didn't connect to how it was
Yeah.
given to me. I felt like it wasn't something that I could take for myself. It was something that was more pushed, like this
Yeah.
is the way that it is. And
Yeah.
there wasn't really a lot of questioning involved, a lot of thinking involved.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a negative experience. It wasn't a positive one. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So when I came into yoga, it wasn't until probably my later 20s that I started to investigate into the philosophy of yoga, which is the values, the eternal values to live by, the teachings, the concepts that take you from where you are, let's say, toward enlightenment, that highest state that you can become the best version of yourself, your greatest potential. And that's where Vedanta came in. Veda just means knowledge. So it's really just the culmination of knowledge is what it means. But the packaging from my guru was so simple. The books that he had written, that he had studied from the Vedas, it was instead of reading a very cryptic like text where you just can't even really understand.
Yeah.
It's hard it's easy to misunderstand, I will say,
Yeah.
those ancient scriptures. So he took his lifetime, and he's in his 90s now, to rewrite those scriptures in a way that was very accessible to the masses. So when I got my hands on it, I was mind blown. I was thinking to myself, these teachings are so simple and so practical. They make like so much sense. I was a little bit frustrated. I was mad. I was thinking,
Interesting.
why weren't we taught any of this? Because they were all the teachings of the way to live life happily, successfully, and contributing in your greatest way, serving, right? Being devoted and all these wonderful qualities. And I just found it fascinating that in all the schools, no matter which one it was, that my parents paid, thousands of dollars for me to go to get my bachelor degree. Why wasn't any of this taught? So you get out of school and you have some skills to
Yeah.
make a living, but
Yeah.
I was depressed. I was anxious. I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Was on all these medications. So it was like, here's your prescription for life. And so I respect religion because I truly believe it is meant to become the best person that you can be. However, the way that it is organized sometimes or handed out doesn't really, I don't think, isn't effective. So it's not religion that's the problem, it's how we use it. So
Yeah.
that's why I think I turned more to spirituality in terms of I asked myself that question, like, what are the values that make sense to me to live by and for me to learn and you know live out in, and then also to teach others and educate. That
Yeah.
really became my passion, is how do I get this out in this accessible language, even more so with my personality, to the masses.
Yeah. I think, not, I don't think, I know that even in the Christian tradition, the Christian religion, many are moving away from the more sort of, I don't want to say orthodox, but the more procedural, sort of artificial, with artifacts, um, church, if you will. And while, Christians will still go to church, they're looking for something beyond the script, the and not scriptures, but the the program, if you will, where these certain things happen, because I think most of us, I certainly recognize that over the years, whatever the religion is, yes, it's been interpretation upon interpretation upon interpretation upon. I mean, it's why, you have one Christian religion, but, I don't know, thousands of hundreds, I don't know, of traditions of, United Methodist, Presbyterian, Baptist, yada, yada, yada. And all of those, in some form or fashion, in my way of thinking, represent a split from uh, from the as the way that you say, the way it's handed out, or the format of the church, because they say, okay, you're not doing this in the way that we believe it should be done, so we start another church, another denomination. So I just think that's practically happened. I do know that, particularly with my oldest daughter, both of our daughters were brought up in the church, and to your point, it was a great experience for them. It was all good because we wholly believe that not only in the teachings of Christ, but that those things emanate from good. It's, the whatever you're I would even say, if you're an atheist, you should go to church because they're, at least trying to teach good. Let's just put it that way. And so then when my oldest daughter, she got into school about her second year in college, she was like, I don't know if I believe in God. And my wife and I, I don't know if we freaked out. That's probably a little bit too strong, but we were certainly concerned that suddenly, and we went and talked to our youth pastor and a couple other people, and they said, listen, he was almost excited about it. I was like, what are you so excited about? He's like, she's exploring. When she comes out of this, she will
Yes.
be a serious person about it. And she's just, and we didn't shove a lot down their throat. We really didn't. We knew there would come a time that they'd have to reckon with themselves and their God about what they believe and think. And it did. It happened. And so it sounds like, maybe again in another shape, if you will, or form, that's sort of what you did, right?
Yes, I really felt like the exploration, the
Mm,
curiosity, when you give children, when you give humans a chance to be in their curiosity,
mm-hmm,
that's when they come to find what they need
mm,
to help them in their life. And sometimes you do need to go the opposite way to come back around or to find that God might be different for you. You know, you might call it something different. You might feel a presence that's
yeah.
different. And I think that's, people are so scared of free thinkers.
It
I
is
think,
scary. As a dad, it
like,
scares me.
yeah. But I'm happy to see that you let her find her way because that truly is
Yeah,
the greatest parenting, I believe. And even with coaching people, it's like I'm not trying to make them see it my way. It's like I want you to see your way and
yeah,
but be open to that and what
yeah,
that might look like because our paradigm, comes from what we've
yeah,
been told and our past. And so to undo that, to live in your creation, like my book, it's really about deciding almost I'm going to wipe the slate clean. I mean,
mm,
even my guru, and this is what drew me so much to him and his teachings and Vedanta is because the presentation, he will say even in his books, don't listen to me, don't believe me. Here are these truths of life.
interesting.
They are not even true unless you really delve into the depth and you think for yourself independently on them. Then I came up with this acronym and I share it in my books. It's called, well, TRAA. So it's Tray, Think, Reflect, Absorb, Apply. So if we're able to do that with any information, then no matter what it is, it's taken in. It's like chewing food. If you just take a bite and swallow it, it gets stuck in your throat and your belly. You can feel that lump. It's not going to digest well and be absorbed or even come out well.
Yeah.
So if you smell it, if you taste it,
Hmm.
if you take the time to chew, all those enzymes are released properly for digestion. It's the same thing with any information, with any knowledge, which is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. I mean, people know so much, but are they wise? And wisdom is knowledge lived. It's
Yeah.
living that knowledge. So I think we were missed that. I mean, I was never told to think things through and let it seep into your system and absorb it so that you can apply it and live it.
Yeah.
In the traditional education systems, you're really in most religion institutions, but you're saying, and I believe too, that they are starting to change because people are repelled. They're now starting to be like, this, I want something to think about. I don't want to be told that this is so. I want to be given a buffet and say, here's all this knowledge. Let's sift through it. Let's think through it. Let's ask questions. And you get to decide if you want to take it and live it or leave it
Yeah.
behind.
Yeah, that's really compelling thinking there, to be honest with you. Now, so Karen, let's move forward into sort of our topic here. Boy, what a nice start we had. But and talk about. Let me just ask first this basic question where you talk about overwhelm to overjoy. What does that mean?
This is a concept that not only I call it grow through instead of go through, because go
Mm,
through sounds hard, but
yeah,
growing through sounds a little lighter
yeah.
and more exciting.
Yeah,
Like,
it
yeah,
does. Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to
yeah.
grow through
You
this.
might hang around for a minute and grow as
Yeah,
opposed to just
yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I don't want to go through this, but
mm,
growing through it, I kind of do want to do that. And that happened to me after my husband passed. I mean, I was in survival mode a lot during those 2 years of caregiving. It was constant seizures. And so my heart was always fluttering.
gosh.
He had seizure symptoms all the time. So I just never knew when it was going to happen. And the first seizure traumatized me for
I
sure
can
because I
only
did not know
imagine.
what that was. And I thought he was dying in front of me.
Sure.
We didn't know what was going on. And so every time there might have been a seizure or the symptom, I would kind of freeze in my body,
Wow.
and it was, he was also having, he was a big guy, so he fell a lot. He would fall down the stairs. I mean,
Oh
there were
gosh.
just emergencies going on left and right, and during a pandemic. So it was a very difficult time, and I was always on edge. So after he passed, I had hired two beautiful beings to be my mentors for personal and business growth. And this overwhelm was prevalent, like feeling the weight of the loss, but also everything I had to handle, all of his businesses, the
That's
estate.
that's
There
very
was,
overwhelming.
he was only 30. He was 12 years younger than me. So he was just starting his big real estate company. He had these big dreams. So he had multiple businesses. So there was a lot to handle, and with his family. So when I brought this concept of overwhelm to my mentors, they helped me see it differently. Caren, the overwhelming feeling that you have is basically your abilities that are waiting to be brought forth to the
Wow.
world.
Whoa.
And yeah,
Didn't
that
see
was
that coming.
mind blowing. And I was like, wow, what a reframe. So thinking of this overwhelm as really just kind of all of my potential abilities, creation that's waiting to happen and be shared and to the world, that really was just overjoy. And
Wow.
so I shifted because I knew that I couldn't be in creator mode from the place of overwhelm, because overwhelm leads to burnout, and then it ultimately leads to sickness or disease. And I know that
Hmm.
chronology.
Hmm.
And I did get sick. I was in the hospital twice when I with pancreatitis because I was so
Wow.
inflamed.
Yeah.
So that happened during the pandemic with my husband being ill. I
Oh,
had to leave
sorry.
and I had to take myself to urgent care and ended up there for 4 days. And so then after he died, there was also another episode. And so I realized that I can't live at all in overwhelm, and I have to transmute this into overjoy and realize the feeling is very, very similar. It can be confusing. It's because when you're overjoyed, there's a lot of emotion there.
Yeah.
And when you're overwhelmed, there's a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
But one is heavy and brings you down, and one is really light and helps you, be uplifted.
Yeah.
So I hope that's a,
Yeah.
a good explanation.
No, no, that is. I honestly didn't see that coming from when your mentor expressed, that overwhelm is just, you know, over, overjoy, just waiting to break loose.
Yes.
What a thought. I really literally have to think about that more to totally grasp it. But I could see where the paradigm shift, took place in you. And so, okay. So would you then share maybe just a little bit about your transformation from when your husband passed, maybe just a little bit about the journey there and how you eventually got into the place that you're at now.
Well, I have to say that it did start before I even met him.
Fair
I
enough.
was on a path of self-development,
Okay.
and that for me is why I was able to handle the news of the terminal cancer, because I had studied life and death,
Okay.
reincarnation. I understood that, at least for me, what made sense is when your desires in this physical form can no longer be expressed through this physical body, they're going to move on to another body. And
Interesting.
when it was explained, all the energy science that I'd read merged into that as well, where I was like, well, energy cannot be created or destroyed. So therefore, life is eternal. I already had this idea in my head that okay, this physical form doesn't last, but energy lasts. So that brought me peace of mind in terms of not fearing my own death and not even worrying about it. So I had this sense, and I knew when he was diagnosed, his thinking was so big. I thought to myself, I don't think his body is able to express these big desires to change the world. Like he's probably gonna move on to another form. And I felt like as much as it hurt because he was my soulmate, he was my self-belief inspiration, but I felt like this isn't about me. His journey, this is his journey, and it may end. And I happen to be a part of the journey. So, yes, I'm going to be affected by that. So, I think even just going through that was transformational in itself. But really, becoming a caregiver is what transformed me to get
Mm,
me to where I am now. Because I had never had to care for anyone. I never wanted children. I cared for dogs. And I was married before, and it's not that I wasn't caring toward my husband, but this is a different role when
sure.
someone is ill and
Yeah.
declining every day, and you're flying to Duke University in a pandemic every month, for doctors and, you know, caring for someone, helping them eat, helping them walk, helping them talk, and all of those things, it's a different level. And what it did for me is it really released any selfishness that still existed in me. I couldn't be selfish. I could
Right.
self-preserve. I knew that I had to preserve myself to
Yeah.
be there for him, and that was difficult.
Yeah.
But so I didn't completely like lose myself and my self-care because I understood if I go down, I won't be able to help this man. So I still was able to take care of myself, but I had something else to live for him. And to be of service in that way was transformational. I didn't understand what real service meant until this happened to me. And it made our relationship
That's
so much
powerful.
more beautiful
Yeah.
because we were forced to be in proximity pretty much, all the time, live in the same home. And we were both independent. He was doing his thing, opening his business. I was mine. And now here we are. I'm taking care of him, which he didn't like. I mean, he didn't want me to take care of him. He
Yeah.
was really strong, and determined. So those dynamics having to change roles, that's what gave me the self-belief. That's what ultimately, like, I depended and leaned on him to believe in me, to start my businesses and to do all these things. The roles reversed. And that's one of the titles
Yeah.
of my chapters, the role reversal, is that now I was the one that he needed to lean on. And so I knew I had to believe in myself and be strong. There was no other way because he was watching every single move. And I thought to myself, if I don't succeed in being happy in front of this man while he's dying, and even successful with my business closing down and recreating my whole business online, he's going to watch that and it's going to be so hard for him to see me fall.
Yeah. Wow. Listen.
So, yeah, him falling was like hard enough. I'm like, I can't, I got to show him, I got to rise up for his sake. So,
And
so that's really the
yeah.
greatest transformation.
And in my way of thinking, that's one of the real essences of marriage, of this type of a marriage, is that you do rise up for each other when the time comes. But I'll tell you, what you were just saying makes me think about what I heard many years ago from Stephen Covey, where he said that love is a verb. And that was a transformational thought for me, understanding, and you just put it into really great words that there's the love, the feeling how you feel, which is good, but it's more self-centered, versus the love that you learned about, which is doing out of love and for love for the person that you love. That's incredible. What what a what a what a story of transformation and learning. And I'm so happy that you are able to express it, this transformation. I mean, that's incredible. So Caren, what about yoga? So where did, and I don't want to jump ahead of you. If there's something before that that you want to do, please go there. But I did want to ask you about yoga and the role it played, in
Yes.
this.
Well, you know, I knew though with him that I recognized the gift. So I already knew for me that he was the catalyst in my life
Mm,
that I needed to move out of my smallness.
okay.
And I like to be over here. And let's just stay in this little bubble so that I don't have to deal with the rest of the world kind of thing. And he got me out of that box because he could see the potential in me. So I want to tie in yoga here, but I do want to say, I mentioned this because it's so important. Before he passed on our third wedding anniversary, we were able to go out. He was able to speak, not very well, but I could understand him. And he said to me, with tears in his eyes, he basically was saying goodbye, but he shared with me, Caren, I wanted to make this huge impact. I wanted to change the world. And he said, I didn't know that the person I was going to change the most was going to be you. I thought
Wow.
you were amazing and wonderful, but honestly, I didn't see what you've created now, what you've done. He said, you're a badass. He said, you've taken care of me, you've taken care of our home, you've taken care of business. And he said, I'm okay to die because, and he was fighting it. He didn't want to die. But most of that was because he was scared to leave me on my own.
Yeah.
And so he said, I'm okay to die if that's what happens because I know you're going to be okay. And I'm so proud of you. So that was
Wow.
transformational. And that stayed with me to this day forever. I will never forget that conversation. That is when I fully
Wow.
found my own self-belief and empowered myself. And he was able to die, and I was able to take that and now share. I guess I am the one. I always thought it was going to be him to be speaking on stages, and it's really me. I'm the one. He was the angel in my life to bless me. So yoga, when I was 16, as I mentioned, that was the age that my mom recommended the yoga class. And I kept that practice up, and it led me to a job with my brother. We both moved back at one point to Michigan. He opened a studio, so I was like the main teacher, and I got to work with him and under his wing, and he opened many studios, and I got to grow and teach um, workshops and trainings and retreats, and it was really incredible. I had my own clients as well, and it was a career path that just found me, I think. I mean, I wasn't even trained in yoga before I taught my first class. I just naturally was able to teach people how to move. And also I love to talk about and integrate life and concepts in the class. So it just came natural. And then
Wow.
once I did the yoga training, then I kind of excelled in the yoga field. That's also where I learned about Vedanta and started reading and got the philosophy. That's what helped me get off all the medications I was on. It gave me mental peace. So then I was really driven to not just teach people physically, but that mental component and the concepts and the values. So it became this evolution basically. And opening the yoga studios was a really big part of my confidence in being an entrepreneur and owning my own business. That really shaped me, knowing that I could do that. And closing down the studios was a blessing. It was very difficult to own brick and
Yeah.
mortar, a small business. You're
Yeah.
you're managing everything. You're juggling so many things. With my
Yeah.
husband being sick, I could not handle that,
Yeah.
but it was during a pandemic. So I was live streaming all my classes, but the business was going down. So yoga was a very wonderful tool always for me in my self evolution, in my development. And also, it's a wonderful physical, mental, spiritual practice. And intellectual. There's all of it mixed in. It's so big. You can find all these tiers. It's like a big tree with a ton of branches, kind of like religion. And so I really took to it and loved it and loved teaching in different ways. So I basically kept some of the physical components, but created a whole online mental training program during the pandemic. Everyone needed it. And I already had the workshop that I did in person. So I had the outline and I wanted to create something that was remote, the program that people could take. And so that's when I created my signature course called Karen's Notes on Happiness.
Mm.
And that just was instantly successful. People wanted to sign up for that. They had the course online, there were yoga classes built in, and they could also do the live stream classes with me too. And so there was a community vibe, and then I coached them. So that was how I first transformed or recreated my business from studios to online. And then I started to navigate, over the years to, I had some speaking opportunities and I loved the way that that made me feel
Mm-hmm.
and love that I could make an impact in other industries and to people who may not have ever stepped foot in a yoga studio or on a yoga mat.
Mm.
So I started to notice and also wrote my book and thinking, I love writing and speaking. And
Mm.
so I still do yoga. I still take yoga and I teach remote, but it used to be this big part of my career of teaching. Now it's sort of just the wonderful tool that I love.
Yes.
It's always in my life, but I've outgrown teaching, a lot of yoga classes and coaching a lot of people,
Sure.
and that's okay. And I'm here now really in this phase of speaking and writing. So it's really
Yeah.
been a beautiful progression.
That's interesting. Very, very fascinating to hear you talk about that. And, and I guess as I listen to you and learn more about you, you would fall into multiple categories, but one I would say you're a creative and creatives. And I find myself in that same arena, as does my wife. And she used to have she shut her studio down, I think, less than a year ago. She had a music studio. She teaches music. And boy, she's even just yesterday, she said, Kevin, I was so afraid of closing down the studio. She said, but it's the best thing I ever did. And she's still teaching, and we have a studio here at our house. But it's an interesting thing. But having said that, creatives, I also call us yearners. You yearn to express yourself. You yearn to be curious, and to seek truth, to understand things. It's just this this thing where we just yearn for truth and for expression and all these other sorts of things. So let's I want to ask about your books, and just, I want to really move on to your recent book, The Midlife Creation. And but I want to ask about the whole self-belief component that you say that is sort of the foundation to transformation. And I could probably assume what you mean there, but I'd love to hear what you actually mean.
Yes, I never realized that I was always creative and I was on this path of self-development. But when I met my husband, I could see his self-belief. I could see it instantly. It was an energy. Just he was just energized with self-belief. And when I
Interesting.
mean self-belief is the power of self-confidence, the power of determination, the power of believing that anything is possible.
Yeah.
And and no one can interject on that. And so
Oh, interesting.
yes, he was this force where this is what I'm gonna do. He would say it, and it didn't matter what anyone else thought or anyone else said. If he believed that was the right thing, he knew he could do it and
Oh,
create it.
interesting.
That's
That's
powerful.
powerful.
And so being around him,
Yeah.
it gave me power. And I didn't necessarily have that power yet, but I
Yeah.
knew
Yeah.
that I could do the things that I thought I couldn't do with that person around. So, what I recognize is the power of proximity with someone who believes in themselves.
Okay.
And I was inspired by that. It inspired me on a daily basis. So, as I've shared how I came to believe in myself through this whole experience with him, I mean, every single thing that I did not want to do in life came up in those 2 years. I mean, I didn't want to learn how to drive a stick shift for inch, like I didn't want to even try to figure that out. I was forced to when we were overseas in South Africa. He couldn't drive. His right side of his body wasn't working. He's like, well, I'm going to have to teach you how to drive a stick shift up this narrow, windy road right now. And I couldn't get out of it. And being the baby in the family and being in my family and as much love, I have to say, they spoiled me. And
Yeah.
I didn't have to do those things if I didn't
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
David was the complete opposite. And so I needed
Interesting.
that because I needed to learn that I could do anything that I put my mind to. And so there wasn't a choice. It wasn't like, oh, well, no, I don't want to do this. You have to do this and you're going to do this and we're going to do it together. And I believe in you. And I'm like, okay. And so I didn't argue. I just said, okay, this is it. And I had to navigate these huge trips. I didn't know how to drive, driving on the wrong side in the wrong seat, like going around it was insane. And
Yeah.
I did it somehow, some way. I got us from here to there. We successfully went on these trips, even though he was having seizures and all this stuff was happening and business and life and our relationships. I just was able to navigate. I had to step up in his family affairs. Everyone was telling me what to do, telling me what I should do with him, and I knew what David wanted. So I had to step into my self-belief and say, "Nope, this is what we're
Wow.
doing." And I had to deal with everybody telling me and also not liking me for
Yeah,
telling
I
them
get it.
this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so this is what self-belief was. When he died, I did take some time, but I kept moving myself. I kept teaching. And when I felt that I couldn't, I didn't. But I knew that if I stopped, that wasn't going to help me. So I
Right.
did slow down and my my program was already going. It wasn't like I just took this business and launched it. It was already launched. So I
Wow.
already had
Yeah.
people that I was leading. So what
Yeah.
happened was I knew I needed to write about this story. And I was sitting there watching like 25 women on a call I was leading. And I was thinking, what is it that why have all these people been able to make changes in their lives and themselves transform? And I knew the answer. I'm like, I believe in myself. And that
Yeah.
is so contagious
Yeah.
and so inspiring. Just like David believed in me, I'm now the seat of self-belief, and all these people are being inspired to make moves in their lives.
Okay. So let me interject here because this is very interesting where you're going with this. I have a few thoughts I'm just going to throw out, and but all of this is leading to a question, and I'm not sure what the question is. But you know, on the one hand, I feel like a person like David, right? I think you're, I think to some degree, maybe you're, well, we could argue whether it's nature or nurture that causes a person to grow into the state that David did, that you just have this incredible self-belief, and it is very admirable. It's probably more nurture, but still, I think there's maybe some temperament that comes with that that just makes that you go, wow, how does this person just do that? And then you answered part of my question by saying that it's very contagious. So it started to spread over to you, but you also suggested that you were thrusted into this place where you had to perform. You had to do it. And I believe in that because as a coach, and when people ask me, how do I build confidence? I say, just as a bit of a throwaway, but I mean it, well, you kind of have to just jump in. I mean, you have to You have to experience it, and yes, you're going to fail, whatever. I mean, that's the only way that you're really going to get it. I mean, I can talk to you about confidence, but and so I'm throwing all of that together, Caren, to say then, well, there are so many people who lack self-belief and confidence and don't know how to get there. I mean, what do you say? How do you, well, yeah, what do you say to them, knowing what you know and knowing it's not going to just happen tomorrow? I mean, how do you move them in the right direction when it comes to self-belief?
Well, this is one of the reasons why I'm choosing to, well, I wrote the book, but also I wrote The Power of Self-Belief, knowing that that's the title, man. Like I've got to
Yeah,
talk about this story, right? And then shifted into this new book, From Midlife Crisis to Midlife Creation. It's the 5 steps to recreate your life and reclaim your power. And
interesting.
because I was, now that I see how I got here, it was like, how did I exactly? Like, what were those steps?
Mm,
And number one, I will say this. It's not even the first step. I'll share the first step, but first thing is that you have to understand that everybody has that power within. And so you
yeah,
can't gain that power unless you understand and are aware it exists within me. It's not in a store, it's not in a book. I can't get it from you. I can be inspired from you,
yeah.
but I can't get it externally. So once you realize, okay, I already
Okay,
have it, but I need to express it. I need to come in contact with it. I need to, how do I get to that power of self-belief, that
okay,
innate divine power within me? And that, that does happen over time. But for me, how I got there is number one, already being on that spiritual path, whatever you choose of self-development, personal development, because that's an inward journey. So if you're not going inward, you're not going to be able to ever find it. But if you
yeah,
recognize, okay, going inward on some sort of a path that gets me to develop myself, and progress, improve, whatever you want to call it. But that path then coincided with being in proximity with someone who had the power of self-belief. So my
okay.
suggestion is it doesn't have to be physical presence. Like I did marry that person, right? So I got it
Hmm.
right there physically.
Yeah,
But it could be so if someone was inspired by your self-confidence, to be coached by you, to be have your presence, to have your energy, or let's say they're just inspired by, I just thought in my head, like I love Joe Dispenza. His personality
hmm,
and
yeah.
his speaking, what he
Likewise, yeah.
says, right? So if someone has that power and they have that confidence and they have that belief in themselves, you just want to hear and see that as much as you can on a daily basis. And that is doable. Like that's doable for
Yes, it is
people. It's like,
doable.
oh, you know what? Okay, I don't know if I'll believe in myself, but I'll I'll be around that. I'll listen to that messaging. It has to be consistent because you're going to be influenced by that voice, by that energy. And that is what I'm saying by it's contagious. Like you can spread cheer, you can spread fear.
Yeah,
So be around the
yeah.
person that you want to become. That self-belief that's inside of you, that person already has, that is exuding self-belief, be in that proximity. That's what I would say to
That's
someone
powerful.
who, yeah.
Yeah, and so you're right. I mean, it's hard uh to not you know ma- allow that to change you in some form or fashion. But I agree with you also about the consistency of it all. It's the analogy is, of course, that it's like being in the gym, that you're not going to show up to the gym one time and suddenly see all these changes. But as you are working out, You understand what you just said, that the powers within you, or let's take it to the gym, that that the process is going to work. You stay in there, you work out, you don't even have to be perfect about how you go about working out, but come back a month and a half later, and you're going to see the fruits of your labor. So the same thing applies what you're saying here about hanging out with people
It's
who exude that, please.
it's what we're both saying to
Yeah,
condense that for anyone who's listening, whether it's changing your physical body or changing your mindset, finding that self-belief, it's only a matter of time.
yeah.
That's it. It's only a
Yes,
matter of time
yes.
when you make the right move. And with the gym analogy is so great because you're yes, you can use all the machines and stuff, but really this bicep, if I want it to get bigger, I have to use this muscle.
How about that? Let's break it down.
So I already have a
Yeah.
bicep. It might not
Yes.
be as strong and big as I
Yes.
want,
Yes.
but when
Yes.
I use this to
Yes.
gain more strength, and so that's
Yeah.
what it's saying. It's saying you're gonna be reflected. It's a mirror. Someone with the power of self-belief is mirroring
Yes.
what is exposed in them you have, and once you realize that, it will come out. Start
Yes.
slowly but surely, but having someone, if you can find someone too that you can get coached by, or even if it's like a friend or family or partner, if someone believes in you, man, that is so powerful to be
Yeah.
around. Not only someone with the power of self-belief, but when they believe in you. That's why I love mentoring and coaching.
Yes.
Only some people, not a lot of people anymore, but one or two people I coach. But I always believe so much in the person I'm working with, and that goes a long way, especially in the beginning, because they don't have that. And I'm over here saying, I believe in you. Even all the content I create, I make sure to say that, to look in the eyes of whoever's
Yeah.
watching and say, I believe in you.
Yeah.
And
Gosh, that's so
people
powerful.
feel so good to hear that.
Yeah. Well, you hear it all the time in let's just say it's in award shows, whether it's sports or Hollywood or whatever, thank you so and so for believing me when nobody
Right.
else would. I mean, that's and you can see how much that means to them. Let me ask you one more thing before we move on to your other book, your current book, and that is though, so I wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said. That's a very powerful way to express this idea of self-belief and where it comes from and how you get it. But then there are those who have been crushed or traumatized in life so deeply that even with a coach and however you want to say that, oh, they got a lot to unwrap there. They got a lot to peel back before they even think about self-belief. Let's just say it could be a person who, a person who was, a woman who was traumatized and just crushed over years of a marriage, of gaslighting and abuse by, let's say, a husband or something like this. So now they show up. That's a different animal, if you will. I mean, just any thoughts about that? That's deep, but I don't know.
It is. I believe that again, if somebody is willing to show up for themselves,
Okay.
and I always say that no matter what you've been through, you can use that. It can be a gift and an opportunity to become
Yes.
a new version of yourself.
Yes.
And that's a whole mindset. So I believe that there is stages and steps. And I do believe for some people, they could step into the power of self-belief faster. For me, I needed apparently tragedy and loss to believe in myself. I mean, to become a
Yeah.
caregiver and to
Yeah.
have my husband die.
Yeah.
So for some people, those things could, I mean, I could have chosen to become a victim and collapse,
Yeah.
and I chose differently. And so a lot of it is making a choice. But when you're willing to receive help from someone
Yeah.
else, many other people,
Yeah.
it has never been one person for me. I've had teams, I've had therapists, I've had gurus, I've had holistic doctors. I mean, an army of support at different periods of my life.
That's
So
crazy.
I've always been to number one. This is why I've been successful in my life trajectory. Life gets better for me. Like midlife is better than any other period in my life.
Hmm.
So I'm only going up. And the only reason is because number one, I choose to receive all kinds of help, any kinds of help that I need. And number two, I'm also willing to help myself. I can't depend on the people to do it for me.
Come
That's
on.
the major component. And I will say that works for anyone, no matter how far gone or how much tragedy,
Mm,
trauma, but the timing might be different. So for that person, it may take more time
yeah.
than someone
Yeah.
else who might have not gone through as much. So,
Yeah.
I will say there's
Yeah.
absolutely hope for anybody.
Ooh, you just said it. I was waiting for you to stop so I could throw that word out there, hope. No, the hope. Listen, so I've interviewed a lot of different people. One of the more powerful ones was Lee Ellis. He was in the Hanoi Hilton with John McCain. I mean, in Vietnam, in the POW camps for 7 years inside of a little box. And like you just said, I was thinking about it just as you were talking about it. What kept him alive was hope. Even in the scriptures, it talks about hope, I mean, there's just so many different ways to go with this that just a shred of hope is so
Yes,
important that hope can grow. And that's what I hear you expressing is the power of hope. And that's what other people can also bring to you if you can be around the right people who will share this understanding that hope is very powerful and you have to show up and, as you said, listen and be curious and want the help and then also want to step in and help yourself. What a powerful ingredient. I mean, just really, truly, wow, Miss Caren. I got to
thank
say,
you.
I want to say this though, just a matter of conversation though. So as I listen to you, especially this last piece, again, in my faith, I'm like, well, God was moving you in that direction. I mean, how do you say that though? I think it's maybe similar in the Jewish tradition that they would suggest that God was behind these moves. I'm not preaching at you or I'm just asking, how do you think about what moved all of this?
I think that I recognize that I'm a grain of sand in the desert and I'm a wave in the big ocean, meaning I understand that if God is all pervasive and everywhere, that I'm part of that.
Yes.
And so that was a huge shift for me coming from, let's say, a religion or even coming from all my studies and understanding
Mm.
that I think is the moment of self-realization
Yeah.
when you realize you're a part of the whole, which means you're it. There's
Yeah.
I am created by the creator. I am divine by
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so when we realize we're these human forms, but we're divine, then for me, that's
Yeah.
why I surrendered
Yeah.
and why I was able to allow all of
Goodness
the lessons.
gracious. Wow. Holy cow.
I just put my hands up. I
Yeah.
wasn't trying to fight it or force it. I shifted from victim to creator. The victim says, why me? Life is
Yes.
unfair. Why did this happen? But
Hmm.
that didn't help me feel better.
Mm-mm.
That didn't help me feel healthy or happy or be able to inspire others.
Yeah.
It kept me in chaos and crisis. And so when people were sending me all these condolence letters, this is so horrible, this is so terrible, this is the worst thing that's ever happened, life is so unfair, it didn't resonate with me at all. I was looking at these words
Yeah.
saying, I can't
Mm,
read anymore
yeah.
because I know that somehow I created this and this is what is needed for growth and expansion. And it's all beautiful and it's all journey. And I believe my husband is
Yeah.
he continued on. He
Yeah.
was no
Yeah.
longer, I think he was my
It's not
angel. I
like he was
really do.
destroyed so that you could become better. He just went on and you
Yes.
and you now have to move on.
Right. I decided what am
Yeah.
I gonna do with this?
Yeah.
And instead of
Wow.
woe is me, why me? I decided this is
Yeah.
pretty incredible experience and gift. I'm gonna share this.
But you know, Caren, I'll tell you, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because I'm about to transition over into your new book here, but I, you know, I'm nervous or bothered or frustrated, a whole host of words I could use there, with what appears to be such like being a victim these days is a badge of honor. And I don't, and I think, I mean, we all probably, I've certainly played victim, from time to time, and I mean, whatever, but it seems to be now the pervasive way of thinking, that somehow I remember reading it was a person that wanted to be on the podcast. This was a couple years ago and reached out to me and I went and looked at her bio and it was this long list of victimhood. I mean, I'm talking about a long list of all of the things that have happened to them. And I didn't bring her on because I was like, well, I mean, I think you get my point. You know, I don't even know what the question is. I'm just thinking about that as I listen to you about how important it is to not live in victimhood.
My video yesterday that I created for socials was just about this. And
Wow.
I literally said victim or creator, you
Mm.
know,
Oh
and
my.
I believe we get to make that choice.
Yes.
And for me, I could not be living on the top of this mountain right now. I just got to see a huge male buck right outside my
Wow. Oh,
window,
love
a
that.
moose.
Oh,
I
wow.
opened my window, I was talking to him for 30 minutes and we were just together.
Oh, love it.
And I saw a bear the other day and I'm sitting here going, this has always been my dream to live in the wilderness, to be amongst animals, to be in Colorado. And I did it, but I would never have been able to be here as a victim. I could
Wow.
not have gotten here.
Yeah.
I would have been stuck. What I had to do to get here for me was one of the most challenging, besides my husband's death, was selling my home and all that came up from that.
Mm.
And it was in a historic district. I had to deal with pages of violations. I had to deal with the government, the
Mm.
district, permits that were not pulled. I had to hire someone to help me with this whole process.
Goodness.
It took, yeah, I got an offer on my house the second week or the first week I put it up for sale, and it took almost a year
Just
to, yeah, to get the house sold
third.
from that.
Yeah. Wow.
I moved before I sold the house because I didn't decide to be a victim. I could have, why is this happening? This is so hard. I'm
Mm.
never going to be able to move. You want to know what I did? I said, no, I'm moving. Yes, I'm going to have to still pay the mortgage on my house for I don't know how many months, but I know it's going to be sold and I'm going to be a happier person in Colorado.
Yeah.
So I chose every time there's that moment where I can say, this is unfair. Why is this happening? I choose to say, this is happening. I don't
Mm.
say why anymore. This
Mm.
is what's happening. What am I going to do with it? And I choose to create. I choose to move myself. I choose to
Wow.
grow myself.
It's powerful.
And I don't, I understand what you're saying, and it bothers me too.
Hmm.
And that's why I will not choose to be a victim because
Good
I
for
can
you.
only lead by example. And I
That's
think
right.
people like you and we can be in the seat, of creatorship and choose not to be a victim and be around people who don't have the victim mentality, and
Mhm.
we can spread that. And
Yeah.
so I think that was a really powerful choice on
Yeah.
your end to say this isn't the right fit
Yeah.
for what I want to create on this podcast.
Yeah. Goodness gracious. Wow. You're just dropping nuggets like it's so let's talk about from your book from midlife crisis to midlife creation. I love the title and it speaks directly to what we're talking about now, that we can see midlife crisis as a crisis from a victim standpoint, or we can say, nope, I'm going to recreate whatever's going on here. So tell us about the book and just please share.
I got a little frog in my throat. I
I'm
swallowed
fighting
wrong.
it the whole time here. Yeah.
So, excuse me, I'm not
No,
crying, but
no, it's all good.
my I recognize that there were steps to take to get me here, that it didn't just happen overnight.
Hmm.
And so I was so inspired. It took me, I will share, about 5 to 6 months since I moved here. I took a sacred pause. I really needed to acclimate and ground myself. I needed to take care of myself. And I didn't try to build a new program and launch a new business and coach a bunch of people and, go do all these things. I just was more still and more quiet and peaceful and soulful.
Oh,
And yeah, I I really knew that being in my home frequency was what was going to be the most powerful way that I could create the next stage of my life. So, and I knew the inspiration was going to come. I just allowed it to say, I don't know when, but at some point I'm going to be motivated and inspired to make a move, and I don't know what that's going to be because
yeah.
moving was already such a big move for me, leaving everything behind and starting over. So a few months ago, well, a couple months ago, I I saw this advertisement online about a speaking program. And I thought I'm a great student and I always love to learn and take a program or a course, but I really need to be, prepared for that and in a good space. And I felt like I was. So I signed up for that. And in the beginning of it, I just had the idea. It just came to me. I was just, you know, filled with creativity. And I thought, oh my God, midlife crisis to midlife creation. And I came up with the title immediately. I'm like, there's
Wow.
there's 5 steps to recreate your life and live your power. And I I just was able to look back at from when my husband died, how did I get to Colorado,
Mm,
in these
mm,
last few
mm, mm.
years? And I think for someone, they might be able to even do it a little bit faster with the 5 steps versus, the 5 or 6 years that it may have taken me.
Very
And so I
interesting.
think I think
Yeah.
that's why I was inspired to write the book. Like, hey, I did this in the longer version. And I think if someone can read these steps, that it can be a quicker process of transformation for them to move into creation, maybe after loss or going through a transition of a big change in
Yeah.
midlife. I think people get very stuck. They think it's too late. I have an 82-year-old client who is working with me on I've been doing yoga with him for years, his highest health. He has everything, the money, the homes, the planes. So he's working on longevity and quality of life at 82. And at
Beautiful.
first his thought was, maybe it's too late for me. And I said, no, it's not. If you woke up today, it's not too late. And
Yeah.
so I inspired him with that. And I think that in midlife, we can get this sort of feeling like, well, I'm stuck in this marriage, I'm stuck in this career, I'm stuck. And, again, the victim, well, it's too late. I'm just going to keep doing this and I'll be miserable. But that's it for me. And I believe that it's a beginning. It's actually a beautiful stage of life because
Mhm.
you can look back and say, You've learned so much already. You've experienced so much already. So you can take all that with you into the new chapter. And there's so much fear of uncertainty, of the
Yes.
unknown. But I'm the example. I threw myself into a city I've never lived in. I've never lived in. I didn't know anyone, no friends, no family, no business, nothing. And I started over.
It's
And
bold.
I've been able to create from that place of rebirth, which is so incredible. And it's exciting. It makes me feel youthful. And I don't feel overwhelmed because I understand now I like to move at a slower pace that isn't in the hustle mentality. And that's where I was in the coaching
Yeah.
field. And after David died, I went right in hustle mode and I almost collapsed. I mean, it was too busy and it was too hard. And so now I believe that I can create from
Yeah.
this space of high health, soul
Yeah.
home frequency, and love. And I just met a best friend. I met a girlfriend, and I'm like, wow, I didn't have this feeling since I met my best friend in high school. So this was just magnetized. And so what I'm saying is, when you believe in yourself, in your ability to create, and you take care of yourself, I call it soul care on a daily
Mm.
basis, everything is going to find its way to you as long as you're
Wow.
open to it. And that's what's happening one by one with me. So I wanted to share in this book, in the book, The Power of Self-Belief, it's a longer story and it's beautiful, but it's this particular book is very practical.
I see. Yes.
It's
Five
very
steps.
practical.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think being in an ebook, being only, I think it's less than 50 pages, it's doable. Like, and
Yes.
whereas the power of self-belief, it's more of a shared story and the eternal values that go with it.
Sure.
And it's wonderful, but it isn't easy to take that and say, okay, now I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah.
With this book,
Yeah.
I think that it ties into my story
Sure.
and but also gives these concrete, steps that you can take. And I'm not saying they're easy, but they are doable. And I really wanted to give someone who wants in midlife or after loss, who's ready to make a shift. I wanted to help them step into that and
Yeah.
know that there is a way and it's possible.
What would you, in your estimation, what's the big thing that holds people back from making this transformation, if you will? Um, and I'll add a little component to that. I think probably many might even feel justified in feeling the victimhood that they've showed up to their midlife, whatever that is. Let's say they're 50. A person's 50, had a pretty tough life. And so here they are. They've got a lot of baggage, a lot of stuff that
Yes.
and a lot of noise these days as well. What I don't, maybe I'm answering my own question here, but what is the one thing that is holding people back from making that breakthrough? Let me just say that, starting the breakthrough, whatever that might be.
I would say, and this goes with the victim mentality, is that our focus, this is the number one
Mm.
thing, the focus on people in their midlife that's holding them back is on everything they've been through and their past instead of the vision and version of greatness in their future.
Interesting. I see.
That is, I think, the greatest weight because you said it's baggage, it's heavy. So when you identify, and maybe that's the better word, with what you've been through, with your past, with what's already happened,
Yeah.
you continue to encourage the same thoughts,
Yeah.
behaviors,
Yeah.
beliefs,
Yeah. This
attitudes.
this is me, right here. Yeah,
Yes. And
that's who
you
I
you
am.
you literally relive the past
Mm,
over and over in many different
interesting.
ways. And so when you believe and think, okay, let's say I've got this dream. I mean, just say whatever the fantasy is, the dream, or just even a goal, it's here and you're here. the question is, how do I narrow the gap?
Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
And it's so who am I? Who do I need to become? And I remember this question was asked in the very first program I took to launch my business online. It was a coaching program, Grow Your Yoga Business. And I remember he had the question in the course and he said, who do you need to become? And I thought about that for months. I could not figure out what he was asking. Now I completely understand,
Interesting.
and it's asking that question, who's the person who achieves what you're saying you want to achieve?
Wow,
You're
boy, that.
saying you want to, yes.
Whew.
So it's manifestation really, right? It's like if I decide that I want to launch my own business online and I want to make this much money and have this many clients or whatever, I'm here now. I don't have that. This is who I'm saying I want to be. How does this person think, act, feel, and behave? And you have to literally become that person now. I explain this in my book because it's actually the last step in my book.
Interesting.
It's about creating what you want now, even on a small scale. Because I hear people, oh, I
Yes.
can't do that. Yes, you can. I hear people say, well, I have this job now. So how do you do? Well, how does the person in what you want think, act, and feel in the job that you're in now? You can become that person now. You can even create a side gig. You can work on the things before and after work or on the weekends. I had a client who
Yeah.
is a singer, but she was in the corporate field. And so I said, how do you implement singing into your weekends, into your morning, into
Yeah.
your
Yep.
evening? And she did it. And
It's
she felt
incredible.
so much more alive. So people think I can't do this. My husband, his book that he wrote before he died, it's called Can't Doesn't Exist. That was his father's motto.
Oh, I love it.
That's what you got to believe. And so that is a hard question to just say one thing. I'm trying to
Yeah.
explain the one thing is that you're trapped and stuck in your old paradigm. And you literally have to decide to change yourself, and
Yeah.
everything else will change after
Yeah,
that.
no, I'm completely tracking. And it was very well stated in the way that you put that. And so let me add one more component to this and then get back to your book. Well, I mean, we're talking about your book. But I believe that, and you spoke about this, part of it going to Breckenridge, that, and what did you call it? Soul something?
Soul care
Soul
or
care.
soul frequency, your
Yeah,
your
soul.
home
Well,
frequency.
the thing is that I wish that, and I don't probably still appreciate it as much as I should, at least from the standpoint that I don't do it as much as I should. But I'm talking about nature, about going out into nature, getting all this noise out of your head, you know, but spending time to let go of all this noise and crap that's the baggage, and giving yourself an opportunity to think clearly. Let's just say it like that. So I guess I just want you to comment on something like this, that, people think that they don't have the wherewithal to make that big break. And fair enough. Some, may be in circumstances where they don't have the means to move to Breckenridge or whatever that is. But I do know that, like a mile from here, there's a beautiful place that I can go walk, spend time,
Yes.
sit down, and let my mind rest so I can think.
I I love that you brought this up because I have had people immediately say when I share some of the things that I share, "Oh, well, I don't have the money to do what you did." And
Okay.
I sold my home,
Hmm.
and that's where I got the money to make some of these moves and
Yes.
live off for a while. And so yes, I understand that not everybody can do that. I have a very abundant mindset. I've never been concerned about or worried about money for some reason because my whole family is, and everybody around me in the world has scarcity mindset. So I don't know how I didn't get that. But I've always trusted that the gold is always within me. The
Mm.
abundance, the money, it's energy. I'm always taken care of. So I always remember that. And I don't have children, so I don't have to think about that. And I know that some people do, and I'm cognizant. But like you said, wherever we are, if you think I can't do this because of all of these things, that will hold you back.
That's right.
And this is where I bring God into it because the universe is co-creating. When you understand you're part of everything and there's no separation and you're divine, then you understand that you're not doing this alone. You don't have to. So I don't think about three things. I don't think about how I'm going to do it. I don't think where, and I don't think when.
Interesting.
I only answer three questions, and this is in my book. So I'm giving it away. What do you want? Just, I don't care how impossible it seems. Just what is
Yeah.
it that you truly want for yourself? Two, who do you want to do it with? Meaning, what kind of people do you want to be
Mm.
surrounded by? And some people will be like, oh, well, I can't choose because I'm surrounded. No, I'm not asking who you're surrounded by now. I'm asking who do you want to be
Mhm.
surrounded by? And
That's right.
number three, why? Because if you don't have a motivation as to
Yeah.
what you want and who you want to be around, you're never going to do it. You need to know why you want this for yourself. Once you take the time to actually answer those three questions, you don't have to worry about how, where, and when because the universe is going to help you. You just become that person. Change your thoughts, change your feelings, change your attitude, your actions, your behavior. I'm telling you, your reality is going to start to change slow but sure, little things, opportunities. And
Yeah.
if you, let's say you want to move to the mountains, but you don't have the means right now, believe that you will. Believe that somehow, some way, you might not know those answers yet. It doesn't matter. But how can you get close to it? And that's how you create it on a small scale. Like you were saying, how do you get the feeling? When I was in Detroit, I found a trail near my house. It was very small, but it led to the police horse station. And so I went there every day
Oh
because it
my.
made me feel
Yeah.
all the things that I feel now living here.
That's
It
right.
it evoked the feelings that I was in nature, that I was around
That's
animals,
right.
and so you can find it wherever you are.
Yeah.
It might be just a little pocket, right?
Yeah.
Nature exists around us everywhere. And you might have to make 100 small moves before you get to the place you actually
There
want
you
to be.
go. There you go. And that's what I was just thinking is that, as I'm listening to you, I'm always trying to think of what's the worst case scenario that somebody would, and I think you've already expressed a level of empathy and understanding that there are some people that seem wholly trapped. But if to use another sort of an analogy, I guess if you've been buried under a bunch of rubble, you're just looking for that little light, just a little light that gives you a little hope, saying, I can see the outside world, and you're
Yes.
not going to reach in and grab and move everything. You start moving one piece at a time and hopefully getting closer to the opening, you know, wow, stop all this madness. Caren, listen, I could have 1,000 more questions for you, quite honestly, but let's let me just ask you now, if you would, one, say anything else that you might have wanted to express during this podcast first, and then secondly, if there's nothing or after that, please share where people can reach out to you, make contact, get your book, whatever it is that you would like to say. I'm happy for you to express that.
Well, thank you. When you were just speaking, it made me think of a story over the years of my development that I've heard about there can be someone who's free in this world, let's say living in the world, and feels like they're in a prison.
Mm.
And there can be someone who's literally behind bars, but feels free because they see that one little ray of light. And that's what reminded me of,
Beautiful.
it's really all up here. You can say my but you don't understand my circumstance. And that is the victim mentality
That's
talking.
right.
That's the victim mentality energy. Well, I can't because, well, I'm different because, and I have empathy. I know that there are many circumstances that I'm not going to say worse. I'm just going to say very, very different than mine, right?
That's
That
right.
I haven't lived through and been through.
Right.
But I will say, if you are here, you still have an opportunity because
Yeah.
I believe that life is a gift. If you see it that way, you can take the time to unwrap it. And that's all that would really like to
Yeah,
add. I think,
just create some kind of a spark. I mean, I'm just so tracking with what you're saying that the victim mentality, or no matter how bad things are, we can empathize ourselves to death, but it's not going to get you anywhere. It might be, it's worth maybe to inventory the things that you've got to overcome, but
yeah.
that's for the purposes of overcoming them, not for to just living in them and sulking in them. I mean, okay. Please share where
And
people go.
yes.
Please keep going. Yeah,
Yes, so you can find me. I mean, my website, CarenPaskel.com, pretty much has everything there. It has my books. My new book is almost ready and it will be available on my website for you. So I will promise I will immediately share that when it's ready. And it's almost there. So I'm excited about that. But everything else can be found there. And you can find me on social media. And I create one valuable, high quality video a day that's very inspirational. So whether
nice.
it's Instagram at Caren Paskel, um, and any of my social media, I think my TikTok's Karen dot Pascal. So if you just search my name, you're gonna find me. And
Yeah,
I always, if you reach out and direct message me on my website, my email's there, all my contact information, I will be very responsive. And my
yeah.
book, The Power of Self-Belief, that's available on Amazon as well.
Yeah, there is also because I did read just a small portion of the one that you have online. That it's a digital book. That's the notes.
Oh, yes, The Power of Self-Transformation. That's
Yeah,
really positive and
yes, it
powerful
is.
because it shares my clients, we were in, it was a program called Light Leadership Through Master Storytelling.
Mm.
And I thought, if we're working on our master storytelling, this deserves a book that we can all
Hmm.
share this power of self-transformation and being in community and proximity with one another. And each one had such a different story. I thought it would be so great for the people, anyone who maybe wanted to work with me or even was just kind of questioning coaching in general, not even
Yeah.
with me, but with just that power of being on
Hmm.
this path of being with transformational coaches and mentors in the community. I thought it would be great to see that, hey, a nurse, who thought she could not change her life did, someone who lost
Yeah.
their husband and she was 60 years old and it was a different story than mine. And someone in the corporate field who completely went into entrepreneur and decided to be a consultant. So yeah, I think that book and that's free. So you can
Yeah.
find that book online on my
I
website
love
as
that.
well.
I have to say this because you mentioned it a couple of times, and now we've already said that the concept of manifestation, I think, is so overblown from the standpoint that, like, I'm sorry if anybody's watching that just fell in love with the book, The Secret. To me, it was just too. It's a lot more practical than people understand. It's not this woo-woo stuff out there, that you have to. I don't know, and I think part of it you expressed earlier that it's there's some practical movements from how you think to what you do to what you get. And I wish people would look more for the practical aspects of how you manifest things in your life as opposed to getting so deep into this real woo-woo, vague, abstract notion of what manifestation is. I mean, would you just say something more about that and then we're going to finish it up here?
It's you're manifesting in every moment, right now
You
we're
are.
manifesting.
That's
And
right.
it's very simple. And to break it down simply, to say it's either happening subconsciously or consciously. So it's being created whether you're thinking about it or not, because your thoughts that are subconscious are creating, and that's when you start to become aware. And if you want to consciously create, then you're going to think, emote, and act differently and create
Boom.
something different.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just
It's
love that. Yeah. And I
very
wish people,
simple.
yes, it really is. And so I encourage people to understand that because there are also people, even in the Christian tradition, that somehow believe that this is some psycho, something outside of what, you know, it says in the Bible or something like this. Again, it's happening. This is what God gave to us, our ability to create and recreate. We were made
Yes.
in his image. Hello. So, anyways, well, listen, Caren, my goodness gracious, this was so wonderful. I can't count the number of nuggets you dropped, and um, I just hope people, listened and will take on some of your ideas. Go to your website. All of that, by the way, will be in the show notes. So, anyways, Caren Pascal, thank you so much for being on Grow Yourself.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.